The gun was already pointed at his head when Lena opened her mouth. 3 words. That's all it took to start a war she never asked for and end the quiet life she'd been clinging to. One warning. One powerful man. One choice that would drag her from the shadows into a world where silence means survival and mistakes mean death. If you want to see how far one whisper can take you, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Check. Part 1. The restaurant smelled like money. Not the kind Lena was used to, the greasy, desperate kind that came in crumpled bills shoved into her apron after a 12-hour shift. This was different, clean, polished, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. Lena moved between tables like a ghost, refilling water glasses no one had touched, straightening silverware that was already perfect. The Meridian wasn't the sort of place that hired people like her. 22, 2 semesters away from a degree she couldn't afford to finish, living in a 4th-floor walk-up where the heat worked 3 days a week if she was lucky. But they needed weekend help, and she needed to eat, so here she was, invisible, forgettable, exactly how she liked it. Table 7 needs water, Marco hissed as he passed, balancing 3 plates of something that cost more than her rent. She nodded, grabbed the pitcher, and moved. Table 7 was in the corner. Private. The kind of spot you requested when you didn't want to be seen but still wanted everyone to know you could afford to be there. A man sat alone, mid-30s maybe, dark suit that probably cost what she made in 6 months. He didn't look up when she approached. "Water?" she asked quietly. He glanced at her, just a flicker. Dark eyes, the kind that seemed to catalog everything in half a second. "Please." She poured. Her hands were steady. They always were. Working tables for 3 years taught you that much. How to be present without being noticed. How to read a room without looking like you were watching. And Lena was always watching. That's how she saw them. 3 men. Moving through the kitchen entrance like they belonged there, except kitchen staff didn't wear leather jackets in August. And they sure as hell didn't move with that kind of precision. She caught it in her peripheral vision, the way they spread out immediately, each taking a position, the way one of them kept his hand inside his jacket. Her pulse kicked up. Not panic. Not yet. Just awareness. She finished pouring and set the pitcher down carefully. The man at table 7, Adrian, she'd heard another server call him, was checking his phone. Unaware. Completely unaware. Lena's mind worked fast. She could walk away. Should walk away. Whatever this was, it wasn't her problem. She was nobody. A waitress. Background noise in a world that didn't see her. But she'd seen them. And the way the closest one was reaching into his jacket wasn't casual anymore. 3 seconds. That's all she had. Lena leaned down, close enough that her voice wouldn't carry. "There are 3 armed men behind you. Kitchen entrance. Don't turn around." Adrian's eyes snapped to hers. No confusion, no disbelief, just immediate, focused calculation. "How many seconds?" His voice was low, controlled. "They're moving now." He stood in one fluid motion, grabbing her wrist. Not rough, but absolute. "Stay close." The first shot shattered the wine glass on table 4. Then everything went to hell. Screaming erupted, guests diving under tables, staff scattering. Lena's ears rang from the crack of gunfire, sharp and impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Adrian pulled her behind the partition wall as another shot splintered the wood inches from her head. "Down!" He shoved her toward the floor, his body covering hers as 2 more shots punched through the air where they'd been standing. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her whole world had compressed into the weight of him above her, the smell of gunpowder, the screaming that wouldn't stop. Adrian moved, fast. He pulled something from his jacket, a gun, black and compact, and fired twice without looking. She heard a grunt, a crash. Then his hand was on her arm again, hauling her up. "We're moving. Stay behind me." I can't." "You can." His eyes locked on hers for half a second. "You already did. Now move." They ran, through the chaos, through the kitchen where 2 men lay motionless. She didn't look, couldn't look, out into the alley where the night air hit her like a slap. A black car screeched to a stop. The back door flew open. "Get in," Adrian ordered. Lena's legs locked. This was insane. She didn't know this man. Didn't know what she'd just walked into. Every instinct screamed at her to run the other way. Behind them, shouts, footsteps, more of them coming. Adrian's hand found hers. "Lena," she jerked back. "How do you know my name?" "Your name tag. Now get in the car or die in this alley. Your choice. 3 seconds." She got in. The car was moving before her door closed. Tires screamed against asphalt as they tore away from the Meridian, leaving behind the wreckage of her quiet, careful life. Lena pressed herself against the seat, trying to control her breathing, failing. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip her knees to stop them. "You're okay." Adrian's voice cut through the panic, calm, steady, like people didn't just try to kill them both 30 seconds ago. "Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth." "Who were they?" Her voice came out strangled. "People who wanted me dead." "Why?" "Long list. Doesn't matter right now." He pulled out his phone, typed something fast. "What matters is you saved my life. I just..." She couldn't finish. Couldn't articulate the impulse that had made her speak instead of run. "You saw them. You warned me. That's more than most people would do." He studied her, those dark eyes reading something she couldn't name. Most people don't see anything. They're too busy with their own world to notice when death walks in. "I notice things." It came out defensive. "I know. I've been watching you." Her blood went cold. "What?" "I've eaten at the Meridian every Thursday for 2 months. You're the only server who doesn't try to make conversation. You move efficiently. You watch the room. And you remember, I've seen you handle 6 tables without writing down a single order." He paused. "That's unusual." "That's creepy that you noticed." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "Occupational habit." "What occupation requires you to study waitresses?" "The kind where people try to kill you in restaurants." The car took a sharp turn. Lena grabbed the door handle, her stomach lurching. Through the window, the city blurred past, familiar streets becoming unfamiliar territory, with every block they put between themselves and the Meridian. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." "I want to go home." "Your home isn't safe anymore." Fear spiked through her. "Why not?" "Those men were after you, not me. I'm nobody. You were seen." Adrian's voice was patient but firm. "The moment you warned me, the moment you became part of this, you stopped being nobody. Victor's people will have identified you by now. They'll know your name, where you live, where you go to school. They'll use you to get to me." "Victor?" "Victor Moretti, the man who sent those shooters." Adrian pocketed his phone. "We've been at war for 6 months. Tonight was supposed to end it." Obviously, that didn't work out for him. Lena's mind reeled. War. Shooters. This was insane. This was a nightmare she'd stumbled into because she couldn't mind her own business for once in her life. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "No one ever does." There was something in his voice, not quite sympathy, something older, wearier. "But here we are." The car pulled into an underground garage, concrete, shadows, the kind of place where screaming wouldn't help. Lena's pulse hammered. Adrian opened his door, then turned back to her. "I'm going to give you a choice, but I need you to understand something first. What happened tonight changed your life. That's done. Can't be undone. The only question now is what you do next." "What choice?" Her throat was tight. "You can disappear. New identity, new city, money to start over somewhere. Victor will never find you. You'll be safe, but you'll be alone. Everything you were before tonight dies." She stared at him. Or you come with me. You step into my world. It's dangerous, complicated, and most people don't survive it with their soul intact. But you'll have protection, resources, and a purpose." He paused. "You saved my life tonight, Lena. That's worth something in my world. Worth more than you know." "I don't even know what your world is. I run things. Businesses, operations, territories. Some legal, some less so. I have enemies who want me dead and allies who want me weak. I need people around me I can trust, people who see what others miss. Like you did tonight. You want me to work for you." It wasn't a question. "I want to give you a choice. Disappear safe and alone, or stay and become something more than you were." Lena looked down at her hands. They'd finally stopped shaking. She thought about her apartment, her half-finished degree, The endless cycle of shifts and cheap ramen and nights spent wondering if this was all life would ever be. She thought about those 3 seconds in the restaurant when she could have walked away. If I stay, she said slowly, what happens to the people I know? My roommate, my classmates? They remember you quit your job and moved away. Normal story, nothing suspicious. They'll be safe as long as they're not connected to you anymore. And if I disappear? Same thing, but you never come back. Ever. She looked up at him. Why me? You said you've been watching. You could have hired actual professionals. Why offer this to a waitress? Adrian tilted his head slightly. Because professionals can be bought. Loyalty based on money is just employment. It lasts until someone offers more. But you? He gestured toward the car door, toward the chaos they'd left behind. You warned me because you saw something wrong and couldn't stay silent. That's not training. That's character. And character is a lot harder to find. You don't know anything about my character. I know you've worked 2 jobs for 3 years to pay for school. I know you send money to your mother in Ohio every month, even though you can barely afford your own rent. I know you turned down a promotion to shift supervisor because it would have meant less flexibility for classes. His expression didn't change. I do my research, Lena. When I invest in people, I invest carefully. She should have been angry, disturbed. Instead, she felt something else, a strange, unsettling recognition. This man had seen her, actually seen her. Not the invisible waitress, not the struggling student, but her. I need time to think, she said. You have until we get inside. After that, the choice has to be made. Adrian stepped out of the car. After a moment, Lena followed. They walked through the garage toward an elevator. Their footsteps echoed. Lena's mind raced, trying to organize chaos into logic, fear into decision. What would I do, she asked, if I stayed? Learn, watch, listen. Your ability to notice details, to remember, that's valuable. I have people who handle security, operations, negotiations, but I need someone who can see what they miss. Someone who can walk into a room and tell me who's lying, who's scared, who's planning something. A spy. An observer. There's a difference. The elevator opened. They stepped inside. Adrian pressed a button marked P. Penthouse, she assumed. The doors slid shut, sealing them in. How long do I have to decide? Lena asked. 30 seconds. When these doors open, I need an answer. Her heart hammered. This was insane, completely insane. She should choose safety, choose disappearing, choose the rational option that didn't involve guns and underground garages and men who studied waitresses like chess pieces. But rationality had gotten her exactly nowhere. 3 years of playing it safe, staying invisible, keeping her head down. And what did she have to show for it? Debt, exhaustion, and a future that looked exactly like her present. The elevator climbed. 20 seconds. She thought about that moment in the restaurant. The choice to speak instead of stay silent. It had felt inevitable then, like there was no real choice at all. Just the thing you did because it was right. Maybe this was the same. Maybe she'd already decided the moment she opened her mouth. 10 seconds. If I do this, she said, I want your word. Nobody touches the people I care about, ever. That's non-negotiable. Adrian nodded once. You have it. 5 seconds. And I want the truth. Always. No games, no manipulation. If I'm going to risk my life, I need to know why. Agreed. The elevator slowed. Then I'm in. The words came out steady. Certain. Like they'd been waiting there all along. The doors opened. Lena stepped out into a space that redefined wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that belonged in museums, art she'd only seen in textbooks. But she barely noticed. Her focus had shifted, narrowed. She'd made her choice. Now she had to survive it. Marcus! Adrian called out. A man appeared from a side room, early 40s, gray at the temples, eyes that had seen things. This is Lena Cross. She's joining us. Get her set up in the East Wing and have Elena bring appropriate clothes. Tomorrow, we start training. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Understood. Training for what? Lena asked. Adrian turned to face her fully. For staying alive. For seeing threats before they materialize. For becoming someone Victor Moretti and every other enemy I have will underestimate until it's too late. He paused. You saved my life tonight because you noticed what you shouldn't have been able to see. We're going to refine that instinct into a weapon. I'm not a fighter. No, you're something better. You're invisible. He gestured toward Marcus. Get some sleep. Tomorrow changes everything. Marcus led her through the penthouse to a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment. The door closed behind her, and finally, Lena was alone. She sat on the edge of a bed that probably cost more than her college tuition and let herself shake. Let the fear and adrenaline and shock catch up. She'd almost died tonight. Had watched people die. Had agreed to work for a man whose enemies sent hit squads to public restaurants. What the hell had she done? Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. 3 missed calls from her roommate. 2 texts from Marco asking if she was okay. The normal world reaching out. Still there, still real, but already feeling distant. Lena typed out a quick message to her roommate. Emergency at work, staying at a friend's. Call you tomorrow. Then she turned off her phone. Tomorrow she could figure out how to disappear from her old life. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. She lay back on the bed, staring at a ceiling she couldn't see in the darkness. Her mind wouldn't stop replaying it. The men moving through the kitchen, Adrian's eyes when she warned him, the sound of gunfire, the way he'd moved her through the chaos like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Maybe he had. What kind of life had she just agreed to? Sleep wouldn't come. She got up, moved to the window. The city spread out below. 1,000,000 lights marking 1,000,000 lives going on exactly as they had before. People sleeping, working, living, normal people doing normal things. She wasn't one of them anymore. The realization settled over her like a weight. There was no going back. Even if she walked away tomorrow, even if she chose the safe option Adrian had offered, the person she'd been 12 hours ago was gone. Dead. Killed the moment she opened her mouth in that restaurant. Lena had spent 3 years trying to be invisible, trying to slip through life without making waves. And in 3 seconds, she'd thrown all of that away. For what? A stranger? A man she didn't know? No. Not for him. For herself. Because staying silent would have meant watching someone die when she could have prevented it. And Lena Cross might have been a lot of things. Broke, struggling, barely holding on. But she wasn't that. Couldn't be that. So here she was, in a penthouse she didn't belong in, working for a man she didn't understand, committed to a path that might kill her before she figured out where it led. The door opened behind her. Lena spun, heart hammering. Adrian stood in the doorway, still in the same suit, but somehow looking less polished now, more real. Can't sleep? Would you? A slight smile. No. The first night is always the hardest. How many people have you recruited? The question came out sharper than she intended. You're the 7th. He stepped into the room but kept his distance. 3 are dead. 1 retired. 2 are still with me. Great odds. I won't lie to you, Lena. This life gets people killed. But so does poverty. So does staying invisible. So does playing it safe in a world that doesn't care if you exist. He paused. At least here, your life means something. To you. To yourself, that's what matters. She turned back to the window. I don't know if I can do this. You already did. You saw a threat, processed it, acted on it, and survived. That's the entire job. I got lucky. Luck is just preparation meeting opportunity. You've been preparing your whole life, watching, learning, staying aware. Tonight was just the first time it mattered. Adrian moved to stand beside her at the window. You know what I saw when I looked at you tonight? Someone who'd been invisible so long she forgot she could be seen. Someone who'd been told her skills didn't matter because they weren't flashy or obvious or easy to put on a resume. But they do matter, Lena. They matter a great deal. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you notice when someone orders the same wine 3 weeks in a row. I know you recognize regular customers by their posture before you see their faces. I know you read people's moods in the way they sit, the way they hold their menus, the way they interact with whoever they're eating with. He paused. That's not normal. That's exceptional. You've just never been in a place where exceptional was valued. Lena's throat tightened. She hated that he was right. hated that he saw something in her she'd stopped seeing in herself. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "Then you fail. But you won't die from failing. You'll die from not trying, from missing something because you weren't paying attention. So we make sure you're always paying attention." "How?" "Training, starting tomorrow. Marcus will teach you how to read a room for threats. Elena will teach you how to move through different social circles without being noticed. I'll teach you how to think 3 moves ahead." He turned to face her. "You have a gift, Lena. We're just going to refine it." "And then what? I just watch people for you, tell you who's lying?" "Among other things, but yes, you become my eyes in places I can't look. My advantage when everyone thinks they have the upper hand." Adrian's expression shifted, became more serious. "Victor tried to kill me tonight because he thought he had surprise. He thought his people could walk into that restaurant unnoticed. But he didn't account for you. For someone who sees what others miss, that mistake cost him 3 men and his best chance at ending me. He'll try again. Of course. But next time we'll see him coming." The certainty in his voice was oddly reassuring, like this was just another problem to solve, another threat to manage. Not personal, not emotional, just strategy. Lena realized she was exhausted, bone deep, soul-crushing, tired. "I need to sleep," she said. "You need to try to sleep. Probably won't work, but try anyway." Adrian moved toward the door. "Marcus will wake you at 8. We'll start slow, just observation exercises, learning the layout, meeting the team. Nothing dangerous." "Until when?" "Until you're ready. Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on how fast you learn." He paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth, I think you'll be ready faster than you think." He closed the door. Lena was alone again. She crawled back into bed, pulled the expensive covers over herself, and closed her eyes. Sleep did eventually come, fitful and full of gunfire and shadows. But somewhere in those dreams she felt it. A shift. A change. Like the person she'd been was burning away, making room for whoever she was becoming. By the time morning light crept through the windows, Lena Cross had already started disappearing, and someone new was taking her place.
Hoạt Hải lưu ý, viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện, pha hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới, liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phủ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo. Hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Việt như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả quá mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more. 1453 Part 2, Marcus knocked at exactly 8 o'clock. 3 sharp raps that pulled Lena from a dream she couldn't remember, but left her heart racing anyway. 5 minutes, he called through the door. Coffee's in the kitchen. She dragged herself out of bed, every muscle stiff. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked wrong. Same face, different person. The exhaustion showed in dark circles under her eyes, but something else had changed too. Something in the way she held herself. The clothes laid out on the chair fit perfectly. Black pants, simple shirt, nothing fancy, functional. She dressed quickly, splashed water on her face, and followed the smell of coffee. The kitchen was all chrome and marble, the kind of space where actual cooking seemed almost disrespectful to the design. Marcus sat at the counter with a newspaper, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when she entered. "Sleep at all?" he asked. "Some. That's more than most manage the first night." He pushed a mug toward her. "Black, okay? We have cream if you need it." "Black's fine." Lena took the coffee, wrapped her hands around the warmth. Where's Adrian? Meeting. He runs half a dozen legitimate businesses. Someone has to show up for those. Marcus folded his paper. You're with me today. We'll start with basics. What kind of basics? The kind that keep you breathing. He stood, gesturing for her to follow. Come on. They walked through the penthouse to a room Lena hadn't seen last night. Inside was a table, chairs, and a wall covered in photographs. Faces, locations, documents, a web of connections marked with different colored strings. This is the war room, Marcus said. Every player in Adrian's world is up on that board. Allies, enemies, question marks. Your job is to learn every face, every connection, every detail. Lena stared at the overwhelming mass of information. That'll take months. You've got 2 weeks to learn the critical players. The rest you'll pick up as you go. He pointed to a section marked in red. These are Victor Moretti's people. Top priority. The man who tried to kill Adrian last night is dead. You'll never have to worry about him, but Victor has 15 other lieutenants, each running their own crew. You need to recognize them on sight. Why? Because you'll be going into rooms with them, serving drinks, taking orders, being invisible. And the moment they stop seeing you as harmless, you're dead. Marcus pulled out a chair. Sit. We'll start with faces. The next 3 hours were brutal. Marcus showed her photograph after photograph, testing her recall, drilling names and positions until they blurred together. Lena's head throbbed, but she forced herself to focus. This wasn't college. There were no second chances if she failed the test. That's enough for now, Marcus finally said. You're retaining about 60%. Not great, but acceptable for day one. What's great? Lena asked. 95% or higher. You'll get there. He checked his watch. Elena's waiting in the next room. She'll work with you on presentation. Presentation? How you move, talk, dress, the whole package. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Don't take it personally. She's rough, but she's good. Lena followed him to another room where a woman in her late 30s sat reviewing fabric samples. She looked up as they entered, her gaze sharp and assessing. Lena felt immediately catalogued, measured, and found wanting. This is her? Elena asked. Lena Cross. Lena, Elena Volkov. She'll be handling your transformation. Transformation into what? Lena asked. Elena stood, circling Lena slowly. Into whoever you need to be. Right now you look like a waitress. That's fine for some situations, but useless for others. We need to give you range. I thought the point was being invisible. Invisible doesn't mean forgettable. It means unremarkable. You need to blend into different environments without raising questions. Elena tilted her head. Turn around. Lena turned, feeling like livestock at auction. Height's good. Build is average, which helps. Face is plain enough to be versatile. Elena walked back to her samples. We can work with this. Thanks, Lena said flatly. It wasn't an insult. Beautiful faces get remembered. Plain faces disappear. Elena pulled out several outfits. You'll need 3 personas minimum. Working class, middle management, upper echelon. Each has its own wardrobe, mannerisms, speech patterns. You'll practice all 3 until you can switch between them without thinking. How long will that take? Depends how fast you learn. Some people never get it right. They wear the costume but can't sell the character. Elena's eyes narrowed. You spent 3 years waiting tables. You already know how to read a room, adjust your approach based on the customer. That's 90% of the work. And the other 10%? Not getting killed when someone sees through you. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll leave you to it. Lena, you're with Elena until 4, then you meet with Adrian. He left. Elena immediately handed Lena an outfit. Expensive business casual. The kind of thing junior executives wore to look important without trying too hard. Put this on. We'll start with middle management since that's closest to neutral. Lena changed in the attached bathroom, studying herself in the mirror. The clothes fit well, changed her silhouette completely. She looked competent, professional, like someone who belonged in boardrooms instead of diners. When she came out, Elena was waiting with heels. I don't wear heels, Lena said. You do now. 3 inches, nothing higher. You need to look professional, not like you're trying too hard. Elena gestured impatiently. Put them on. Lena complied, wobbling slightly. Walk,
Elena commanded. She walked. It felt awkward, unstable. Again. Shoulders back, core tight, shorter steps. You're not stomping to a fire, you're moving with purpose. Lena tried again and again. Elena corrected every detail, posture, pace, hand position, where she looked. After 30 minutes, her feet ached and her patience was wearing thin. Why does this matter? She asked. I thought I'd be in the background. Background doesn't mean sloppy. You need to inhabit these roles completely. If you walk into a corporate office looking like you're uncomfortable in your own skin, people notice. They might not consciously realize something's off, but they'll feel it, and feelings get you caught. Elena handed her a glass of water. Take 5. Then we work on speech patterns. The afternoon dragged. Elena was relentless, correcting everything from the way Lena held a wine glass to how she laughed at jokes. By the time 4 o'clock arrived, Lena felt wrung out and vaguely insulted. Marcus appeared at the door. Adrian's ready. Lena followed him to an office she hadn't seen before. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, windows overlooking the city. Adrian sat behind the desk, reviewing documents. He looked up when they entered. How'd she do? He asked Marcus. 60% retention on faces. Elena says she has potential but needs work on physical presentation. That's higher than I expected for day 1. Adrian gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Lena sat. Marcus left, closing the door behind him. Tired? Adrian asked. Exhausted. Good. Means you're learning. He set aside his papers, giving her his full attention. Marcus said you struggled with the photographs. What specifically? There are too many. I can remember faces, but connecting them to names and positions, it's overwhelming. Then we'll change the approach. Forget names for now. Focus on patterns. Who stands next to who in group photos? Who gets mentioned in the same sentences in reports? Build the web before you label it. Adrian pulled out a tablet, showed her the same board from earlier but reorganized. See, instead of memorizing individuals, you're memorizing relationships. Much easier. Lena studied the screen. He was right. The connections made more sense than isolated facts. Why didn't Marcus show me this? Because Marcus tests baseline capability. I adapt to how you actually learn. Adrian swiped to another screen. Same concept applies to everything. Elena wants you to memorize 3 personas, but that's her method. You might work better with 5 looser frameworks instead of 3 rigid ones. We'll figure out what fits your brain. It was strange being treated like her learning style mattered. In college, professors lectured and you either kept up or failed. Here, they were building training around how she processed information. Why invest this much in me? She asked. You could hire people who already know this stuff. I could, but they'd also come with existing loyalties, hidden agendas, bad habits. You're a blank slate, easier to train right than retrain wrong. Adrian leaned back. Plus, you have something most professionals don't. What? You care. Last night you didn't warn me because I was paying you or because you owed me. You did it because standing by and watching someone die wasn't acceptable to you. That kind of moral clarity is rare and valuable. Lena shifted uncomfortably. I'm not some kind of hero. Never said you were. Heroes are idiots who get themselves killed for principles. I need someone pragmatic enough to survive, but decent enough not to become the monster. He paused. That balance is harder to find than you'd think. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not cut out for it? Then we'll find out before it gets you killed, and I'll make sure you disappear safely like we discussed. But I don't think that'll happen. Adrian pulled up another screen. See this? Security footage from the Meridian, 30 seconds before the shooting started. Lena watched herself move through the frame, pouring water, setting down the pitcher. Then the pause, barely 2 seconds, before she leaned in to warn Adrian. Notice anything? He asked. I hesitated. For exactly 1.3 seconds. You saw the threat, calculated the risk of getting involved, and decided anyway. Most people either act on pure impulse or freeze completely. You did neither. That's not luck, Lena. That's instinct. And instinct can be refined. He closed the tablet. You'll make mistakes. Probably a lot of them at first. But the core ability, seeing what others miss and acting on it, that's already there. Everything else is just practice. A knock at the door. Marcus stuck his head in. Sorry to interrupt. We've got movement. Adrian's demeanor shifted instantly. Where? Two of Victor's crews met at the warehouse district. Short meeting, under 5 minutes. They split up after. Who was there? Dmitry Volkov and Sarah Chen. Adrian frowned. Those two don't usually work together. Get me the surveillance footage. He glanced at Lena. You're about to get your first practical lesson. Stay quiet. Watch everything. Tell me what you notice after. Marcus wheeled in a monitor, pulled up the footage. Grainy surveillance from what looked like a street camera. 2 cars pulled up outside a shuttered warehouse. 4 people got out, talked briefly, then left. Run it again, Adrian said. Slower. They watched 3 more times. Lena studied the body language, the positioning, the way they moved. Thoughts? Adrian asked her. The woman, Sarah. She's nervous. Keeps looking around, hands in her pockets. The man with her is trying to calm her down, but she's not buying it. How do you know she's not buying it? She nods when he talks, but her shoulders stay tense. She's agreeing to be agreeable, not because she's convinced. Lena pointed at the screen. And see how she positions herself? Never fully turns her back to either car. She doesn't trust somebody there. Adrian and Marcus exchanged glances. What else? Adrian asked. The meeting's too short to be strategy. They're confirming something they already discussed. And when they leave, the cars go different directions, north and east. If they were coordinating, they'd probably head the same general direction. Unless they're deliberately splitting up to avoid being followed, Marcus pointed out. Maybe. But look at the timing. Sarah's car leaves 8 seconds after Dimitri's. If they were worried about tails, they'd stagger it more. This feels like she just wanted to leave fast. Adrian rewound the footage one more time, studied it. She's right. Sarah's scared. Question is, scared of what? Victor? Dimitri? The meeting itself? Could be she's flipping, Marcus suggested. Or Victor's planning something she doesn't agree with. Adrian turned to Lena. Good catch on the body language. Most people would have focused on what they were saying if we had audio. You went straight to what their bodies were telling you. I spent 3 years reading customers to figure out if they'd tip well. Same skill set. Exactly. Adrian pulled out his phone, typed something. Marcus, put eyes on Sarah. I want to know everywhere she goes for the next 48 hours. If she's thinking about turning, we need to know before Victor figures it out. On it. Marcus left. Adrian turned back to Lena. That's the job. Watching footage, reading rooms, spotting the details everyone else misses. Think you can handle it? I just watched a 30-second video. That's not exactly field work. No, but it's the foundation. You see something off, you report it. We investigate. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it prevents another shooting. He shut down the monitor. Tomorrow you'll sit in on an actual meeting. Just observe. Don't speak unless spoken to. Afterwards, you'll tell me everything you noticed. Lena's stomach dropped. What kind of meeting? Business, legitimate business. I own a shipping company and we're renegotiating contracts with a supplier. Boring corporate stuff. But the supplier's nephew works for Victor, so there might be undercurrents. Adrian checked his watch. Get some rest. Dinner's at 7 if you want it. Otherwise, kitchen's open. She stood to leave, then paused. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Last night you said 3 of the people you recruited are dead. How did they die? Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. 2 got cocky, thought they were smarter than the enemy, started taking risks they shouldn't have taken. He paused. The 3rd was my fault. I sent her into a situation I thought was safe. It wasn't. She paid for my bad judgment. What was her name? Rebecca. His voice was flat. She was 24. Smart as hell, terrible sense of humor, wanted to save enough money to open a bakery. He met Lena's gaze. I think about her every time I recruit someone new. Every time I send someone into potential danger. Because the worst part of this job isn't the enemies. It's the people on your side who don't make it home. Lena swallowed. Why tell me this? Because you need to understand what you signed up for. This isn't an adventure. It's not exciting. It's dangerous, exhausting work where mistakes have consequences. And if you die doing this, it'll be because I made a bad call or you made a bad choice. Either way, I'll have to live with it. He stood. So take the training seriously. Ask questions when you don't understand. And never, ever convince yourself you're invincible. She left the office with those words echoing in her head. Rebecca, 24 years old, dead because Adrian made a mistake. How many mistakes would it take before Lena joined her? The penthouse felt too large, too quiet. Lena wandered through rooms she hadn't explored yet, trying to ground herself in physical space. A library full of books she'd never read, a gym with equipment she didn't know how to use, a balcony overlooking a city that suddenly felt foreign. She found herself back in her room, staring at the phone she'd turned off last night. 12 missed calls now, 6 voicemails, her old life reaching out, wondering where she'd gone. Lena powered it on, listened to the messages. Her roommate sounding progressively more worried. Marco from the restaurant asking if she was okay, if she needed anything. A professor wondering why she'd missed class. Normal concerns. Normal life. She typed out responses, keeping them vague. Family emergency. Had to leave town. Would be gone for a while. She'd settle her portion of rent through the end of the lease. Sorry for the short notice. Lies. All of it. But necessary ones. When she finished, Lena turned the phone off again. That life was over. Time to stop pretending otherwise. Dinner was quiet. Marcus joined her in the kitchen, both of them eating reheated takeout from containers while he quizzed her on the faces she'd studied earlier. She got maybe 70% right this time. Improvement, but not enough. Don't force it, Marcus said. Your brain's still processing. Tomorrow, you'll remember more. How long did it take you to learn all this? Lena asked. Couple months to get functional. Year to get good. 3 years before I stopped making stupid mistakes. He took a drink. I came from military intelligence, so I had a foundation. You're starting from scratch. Give yourself time. Did you know Rebecca? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I knew her. What happened? Adrian sent her to verify a shipment. Should have been routine, our people, our warehouse, controlled environment. Except Victor had flipped one of our dock workers. He let Victor's crew in through the back. Rebecca walked into an ambush. Marcus's jaw tightened. She got 3 of them before they got her. Bought enough time for our people to respond. But she still died. And you stayed, even after that. Where else would I go? This is the job. People die. You accept it, or you leave. He looked at her. Adrian blames himself, but it wasn't his fault. Intelligence failed. Rebecca made choices that put her in a bad position, and Victor took advantage. That's how it works. Lena pushed food around her container. Does it get easier? No, you just get better at carrying it. She went to bed early, exhausted, but knowing sleep wouldn't come easily. Tomorrow she'd sit in a meeting with people who might want Adrian dead. She'd have to watch, remember, report. Be useful. Be invisible. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt almost steadying. A purpose. A role. Something more concrete than the endless drift her life had been before. Lena closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the way Adrian had told her to in the car last night. Eventually, sleep came. And with it, dreams of faces she was beginning to recognize. The next morning started the same way. Marcus's knock, coffee. More photographs. But this time, Lena remembered 85% of the faces. Progress. Elena worked with her on the corporate persona, teaching her how to sit in meetings, when to take notes, how to dress like she belonged without drawing attention. By noon, Lena could walk in heels without looking like a newborn deer and knew the difference between business casual and business professional. You'll wear this, Elena said, handing her an outfit. Gray dress, simple jewelry, minimal makeup. You're Adrian's new assistant. You take notes, get coffee, stay quiet. Standard corporate background character. What if someone asks me questions? Defer to Adrian. Say you're still learning the systems. Smile politely. Be forgettable. Elena adjusted Lena's collar. The point is to be so unremarkable that when you report details later, they won't remember you were paying attention. At 2 o'clock, Marcus drove them to a high-rise downtown. Adrian was already in the car reviewing papers. The supplier is Westbrook Logistics, he said without looking up. We've worked with them for 4 years. The nephew I mentioned is James Westbrook. He handles East Coast operations but has ties to Victor through his mother's side. Today's meeting is purely business, but watch James. See if he gives anything away. What am I looking for? Lena asked. Anything unusual? Nervousness, aggression, overcompensation? These people know me, know how I operate. If James is feeding information to Victor, he'll be hyper-aware of security, of what he says. Adrian finally looked at her. You'll be in the room, but you won't exist to them. Use that. The meeting was in a conference room with too much glass and uncomfortable chairs. 5 people from Westbrook, 3 from Adrian's company. Lena sat in the corner with a tablet, ostensibly taking notes, actually watching. James Westbrook was 32, sandy hair, expensive suit. He spent the first 10 minutes of the meeting doing exactly what Adrian had predicted, talking too much, over-explaining positions, making jokes that landed wrong, nervous energy radiating off him in waves. But it wasn't fear. Lena watched his hands, his eyes, the way he interacted with his colleagues. He was anxious, but not guilty anxious, more like someone with something to prove. The meeting dragged on. Contract terms, shipping routes, cost adjustments. Lena let her mind drift into the pattern she'd perfected waiting tables, present but detached, aware of everything without focusing on anything specific. That's when she caught it. James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then turned it face down. 30 seconds later, the woman next to him, Laura Westbrook, the contract negotiator, shifted her position. Nothing dramatic, just a slight lean away from James. Lena watched them both. 2 minutes later, James's phone buzzed again. This time he ignored it completely. But Laura's jaw tightened. The meeting ended with handshakes and promises to finalize paperwork by Friday. Adrian and Lena left together, Marcus following at a distance. In the car, Adrian asked, "What did you see?" James is nervous, but I don't think he's working with Victor. He's just anxious about the deal, probably worried about proving himself to his family. Lena paused. But Laura, the woman next to him, she's angry at him about something. His phone kept buzzing and she reacted every time. They're having a personal conflict that's bleeding into professional. How does that help us? It doesn't directly. But if you need leverage with Westbrook Logistics, Laura's the wedge. She's competent, frustrated, and probably tired of James getting credit for her work. Offer her a better position elsewhere and she might bring their client list with her. Adrian smiled. Good. Anything else? The older man at the end of the table, Richard something, he's sick. Hands were shaking slightly, kept adjusting his collar like he was uncomfortable. Could be nerves, but I think it's medical. He's probably looking at retirement soon. Richard Westbrook, founder's brother, handles operations. Adrian looked impressed. I didn't catch the shaking. What made you notice? He held his coffee cup with both hands. Most people don't unless they're trying to hide tremors or they're cold. The room was warm. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. That's sharp. It's practice, Lena said. Same as watching customers to see who'd complain about their food. Same skill, different stakes. Adrian made a note on his phone. Marcus, look into Richard Westbrook's health. If he's stepping down soon, we need to know who's replacing him. He turned to Lena. Good work. You picked up 3 things I missed. I just watched. That's the job. Watch. Remember? Report. You did it well. He paused. Tomorrow, we'll push a little harder. There's a charity gala that several of Victor's people will attend. You'll go as part of my security detail. Another invisible assistant. Same task. Watch and tell me what you see. Lena's pulse quickened. Will Victor be there? Probably, but you won't interact with him. You'll move through the crowd, refill drinks, stay in the background. If anyone asks who you are, you're new hire learning the ropes. Adrian's expression grew serious. This is the first real test. Victor's people will be looking for threats, for anything out of place. You need to be so unremarkable they forget you exist. And if I'm not, then we leave early and reassess your role. But I don't think that'll be necessary. That night, Lena barely slept. Her mind kept running through scenarios. What she'd wear, how she'd move, what she'd say if someone questioned her. Elena had drilled her on the persona, but theory and practice were different things. By morning, she was exhausted but wired. Elena spent 3 hours getting her ready, the right dress, the right makeup, the right posture. When Lena looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Perfect, Elena said. You look competent but forgettable. Exactly what we need. The gala was at a hotel ballroom, all glittering chandeliers and people wearing more money than Lena used to make in a year. She entered with Adrian's team, another face in the background, and immediately started cataloging details. Victor Moretti stood near the bar, holding court with a circle of well-dressed sycophants. He was older than she'd expected, mid-50s, gray at the temples, but sharp-eyed, the kind of man who smiled while deciding how to hurt you. Lena moved past him without looking directly. Just another server-adjacent figure getting champagne. She spotted Sarah Chen near the windows, still nervous, still watchful. Dmitry Volkov worked the room with practiced charm. 3 other faces from Marcus's photographs scattered through the crowd. She was so focused on Victor's people that she almost missed it. A man she didn't recognize, standing alone in the corner, watching Adrian with an intensity that didn't match the casual setting. Not aggressive. Studying, like he was solving a puzzle. Lena drifted closer, pretending to check a nearby table. The man was mid-40s, expensive but understated suit, no visible weapons. He caught her looking, and his expression went neutral, professional. She moved away, heart hammering. That look, he'd clocked her watching him, made her as someone who didn't belong in the background. Lena found Marcus, whispered, man in the corner, gray suit, alone. He's watching Adrian and he noticed me noticing. Marcus's eyes flicked that direction, came back. Good catch. That's Daniel Cross. FBI. He's been investigating Victor for 2 years. FBI? Lena's blood went cold. Relax. He's not here for Adrian. We've got legitimate cover for everything tonight. But his presence means the feds are putting pressure on Victor, which makes Victor unpredictable. Marcus touched his earpiece. I'll tell Adrian. You did good. Now disappear back into the crowd before Cross decides you're interesting. Lena melted back into the background, her pulse still racing. She'd almost blown her cover because she'd been too focused on the obvious threats and missed the subtle one. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. She watched, cataloged, remembered. By the time they left, her head was full of details. Conversations overheard, body language analyzed, connections observed. In the car, Adrian asked the same question. What did you see? This time, Lena had more to tell. And when she finished, Adrian was smiling. You're learning fast, he said. Faster than I expected. Lena looked out the window at the city passing by, feeling something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something else was growing. Confidence. She could do this. She was doing this, and maybe, just maybe, she might actually survive.
Part 3. Lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liên mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện. Pha hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch, sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc.
Kẻ theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo. Hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chỉ dẫn bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí. Không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu.
Shomer 1457 Part 3. 3 weeks in, Lena stopped flinching at the sound of gunfire on the practice range. Marcus had her trained twice daily now, once in the morning reviewing surveillance footage, once in the afternoon running scenarios. She'd learned to spot tells in body language most people missed, could identify 20 of Victor's key players on site, and had memorized the layout of a dozen locations Adrian's people frequented. But knowing something in theory and executing under pressure were different animals entirely.
You're overthinking, Marcus said, rewinding the footage for the 4th time. They were in the war room, analyzing security tape from a restaurant where 2 of Victor's lieutenants had met 3 nights ago. Stop trying to see everything. Let your eyes find what's wrong. Lena rubbed her temples. They talked for 18 minutes. Standard dinner conversation. Nothing stands out. Then why did Adrian flag this meeting for review? Because Victor's people don't do social dinners. Exactly. So what's the real purpose? Marcus zoomed in on the table. Look at what they're not doing. She watched again. Two men, eating slowly, talking casually. Normal by every measure, except they're not on their phones, Lena said suddenly. Everyone else in the restaurant checks their phone at least once. These two never touched theirs, which means they didn't want electronic records of being together. No texts, no calls, nothing traceable. She leaned forward. They're planning something they can't risk having documented. Marcus nodded. Good. What else? The younger one, Carter, he keeps looking toward the kitchen, not at the servers, past them, like he's watching the back exit. Escape route awareness or meeting location confirmation? Lena thought about it. He only looks when the older one is talking. It's not nervous behavior, it's anticipatory. He's waiting for someone. Marcus pulled up footage from the kitchen camera. Sure enough, a third person had entered through the back 20 minutes into the dinner, stayed for less than 2 minutes, then left the same way. Vincent Zhao, Marcus said, Victor's accountant, the man who moves money when Victor wants things untraceable. He paused the image. You just identified a financial meeting Victor went to extreme lengths to hide. That's useful intelligence. What does it mean? Could mean a dozen things. Maybe Victor's moving assets before the FBI closes in. Maybe he's funding something big. Maybe he's paying off someone we don't know about yet. Marcus shut down the monitor. Adrian will decide what to do with the information. Your job is just to catch it. The door opened. Adrian entered, followed by someone Lena hadn't seen before. A woman in her 50s, severe gray suit, the kind of presence that made you stand straighter without realizing it. Lena, this is Catherine Mills, Adrian said. She runs security for my legitimate operations. Catherine, Lena Cross. Catherine's handshake was firm. Marcus tells me you've been making progress. She's exceeded expectations, Marcus confirmed. Good, because we have a situation that requires her specific skill set. Catherine pulled out a tablet, showed them a photograph of a man in his 30s. David Park, mid-level player in Victor's organization. He approached one of our people last week saying he wants out, wants protection, wants to flip. And you believe him? Lena asked. That's what we need to determine. Victor's sent false defectors before. People who feed us bad information, report back what we know, sometimes try to kill whoever's handling them. Catherine swiped to another image. We're meeting him tomorrow. Neutral location, controlled environment. But I need someone who can read whether he's genuine. Adrian looked at Lena. You up for this? Her stomach tightened. You want me to interview him? No, Catherine will handle that. You'll be in the room, watching. Afterwards, you tell us what you saw. He paused. This is different from watching surveillance footage. You'll be 5 feet from someone who might be lying to survive. It's harder to stay objective. What happens if I get it wrong? Lena asked quietly. If you call him genuine and he's not, we don't move forward based solely on your assessment. We verify through other channels. Adrian's voice was steady. If you call him false and he's genuine, we approach more carefully, but we don't automatically reject him. Your read is data, not verdict. But someone's life could depend on whether I'm right. Someone's life already depends on whether we're right. You're just one piece of the puzzle. Catherine closed the tablet. I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm good at spotting liars. But I'm not perfect. Another set of eyes helps, especially eyes that notice things others miss. Lena looked at Marcus. He gave a small nod. Okay, she said. I'll do it. The meeting was set for a coffee shop in a neighborhood that belonged to neither Adrian nor Victor, neutral ground that both sides could access without raising flags. Lena arrived separately, dressed in the young professional persona Elena had drilled into her. She ordered coffee, took a table near the window, and waited. Catherine arrived first, alone. She sat 2 tables away, didn't acknowledge Lena. 5 minutes later, David Park walked in. He was nervous. Lena saw it immediately in the way his eyes scanned the room twice before approaching Catherine's table, the way his hands went to his pockets, then out again. Not the calculated nerves of someone playing a role. Raw, genuine fear. Catherine gestured to the seat across from her. David sat, ordered nothing. You said you wanted out, Catherine began without preamble. I do. David's voice was tight. Victor's planning something bad. I didn't sign up for this. You signed up to work for a crime boss. What did you think the job entailed? Moving product, handling logistics, making money? Not, he stopped, glanced around.
Not what he's planning now.
Which is? David leaned forward. There's a federal witness, someone from inside Victor's organization who cut a deal. Victor found out who it is. He's not just going to kill him, he's going to kill his whole family. Wife, 2 kids, parents, everyone. As a message. Catherine's expression didn't change. When? I don't know. Soon. Victor's been moving people into position for a week. David's hands shook. I've done things I'm not proud of. But killing kids? I can't be part of that. What do you want from us? Protection. New identity. Enough money to disappear somewhere Victor will never find me. He paused. And I want you to stop him. Save that family. In exchange for? Everything. Names, locations, financial records, operations Victor's running that nobody knows about. I'll give you enough to bury him. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Why come to Adrian Voss? Why not the FBI? Because the FBI can't protect me. Victor has people inside. Cops, agents, prosecutors. Someone always talks. But Adrian keeps his people safe. I've seen it. David met her eyes. I'm not stupid. I know Adrian's not a saint, but he's got rules. Victor doesn't. Not anymore. And if we can't protect you, if Victor finds you anyway, then I'm dead either way. At least this way I tried. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. Catherine asked questions, David answered, and Lena watched every micro-expression, every shift in posture, every tell. Finally, Catherine stood. We'll be in touch. David grabbed her wrist. How long? 24 hours. Don't contact us. We'll contact you. She pulled free gently. And David, if this is a setup, if you're feeding us false information, you won't have to worry about Victor finding you. Understand? He nodded, pale. Catherine left. David sat there for another minute before walking out, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched against the cold that didn't exist. Lena waited 5 minutes, then left separately. The car was parked 3 blocks away. Marcus drove, Catherine in the passenger seat, Lena in the back. Well? Catherine asked, turning to face her. He's terrified, Lena said immediately. Not performance terrified, genuinely afraid for his life. His hand shook when he talked about the family Victor's targeting. That's not something you fake easily. People can manufacture fear. Not like that. He was scared before you even started asking questions. Fight or flight response already activated when he walked in. Lena replayed the meeting in her head. And he made eye contact when talking about wanting protection, but looked away when discussing what Victor's planning. Classic trauma response. Engaging when seeking help. Avoiding when confronting something disturbing. Catherine exchanged glances with Marcus. What else? He didn't try to oversell himself. Didn't claim to have information he couldn't deliver. Didn't make promises about what he could do for you. Just stated his situation and what he wanted. Lena paused. Liars tend to offer too much, trying to make themselves indispensable. He just asked for basic survival. Could be a very good actor, Marcus pointed out. Could be. But his baseline anxiety was too high for someone playing a role. He was sweating before Catherine asked the first hard question. Lena thought about the way David had grabbed Catherine's wrist at the end. That grab, that was desperation. People faking defection don't break professional boundaries like that. They stay controlled. Catherine considered this. So you think he's genuine? I think he believes he's in danger, and he believes Victor's planning to kill a family. Whether his information is accurate or whether this is a more complex setup using a true believer, that I can't tell you. But he's not consciously lying. That's a useful distinction, Catherine said. She pulled out her phone, typed something. Adrian will want to hear this directly. They drove to a restaurant Lena hadn't been to before. Upscale, private booze, the kind of place where conversations couldn't be overheard. Adrian was waiting in the back, reviewing documents. He looked up when they approached. Talk to me, he said. Catherine summarized the meeting. When she finished, Adrian turned to Lena. Catherine says you think Park is genuine. I think he's genuinely scared and genuinely wants out. I can't verify his information about the federal witness or Victor's plans. But you believe he believes it? Yes. Adrian was quiet, thinking. If Park's telling the truth, we have 72 hours maximum before Victor moves on that family. If he's lying, taking him seriously could walk us into a trap. He looked at Catherine. What's your read? Same as Lena's. He's scared. But scared people can be manipulated into playing roles without knowing they're being used. Catherine set her tablet on the table. We need verification before we commit resources. Marcus, pull everything we have on recent federal cases involving Victor's organization. See if anyone flipped that we didn't hear about. Adrian turned back to Lena. You did good work today. Park could have been a plant designed to waste our time or feed us misinformation. Your assessment helps us approach this strategically instead of blindly. What happens to him now? Lena asked. We verify his story. If it checks out, we extract him and use what he knows. If it doesn't, we cut contact and assume Victor's testing our response time. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Marcus, we've got movement. Victor's people just pulled 2 SUVs from the motor pool, armed crew, heading east. Marcus stood immediately. Toward Park's neighborhood? Close enough. Adrian made a decision. Catherine, get Park to the safe house. Now. Don't wait for verification. If Victor's moving on him, we need him alive to know why. Catherine was already dialing. On it. Marcus, take Lena back to the penthouse. I'll handle this directly. Adrian grabbed his coat. Lena, good work today. We'll debrief tomorrow. He was gone before she could respond. The car ride back was tense. Marcus drove faster than usual, eyes constantly checking mirrors. Lena watched the city pass, mind racing. What do you think is happening? She asked. Either Victor found out Park talked to us, or Park's information was good and Victor's accelerating his timeline. Marcus turned onto the highway. Either way, it's about to get messy. Will Catherine get to him in time? Catherine's ex-military ran extraction operations overseas. If anyone can pull Park out fast, it's her. He glanced at Lena. You did the right thing today. Calling Park genuine when you weren't sure, that took guts. Wrong call could have made you look incompetent. I wasn't trying to look competent. I was trying to be accurate. That's what makes you good at this. You care about being right more than looking right. Marcus pulled into the parking garage. Most people in this business spend so much energy managing perception, they forget to focus on reality. You're the opposite. They took the elevator up. The penthouse was quiet. Marcus checked the security feeds, confirmed everything was locked down. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's going to be long. But Lena couldn't rest. She paced her room, thinking about David Park, about a family somewhere who had no idea they were being hunted, about how fragile life was when powerful people decided you were expendable. Her phone buzzed, the secure one Adrian had given her, not her old one. A message from Catherine. Package secure. Good call. Relief flooded through her. Park was safe. Whether his information panned out or not, at least he'd live long enough to find out. Lena fell asleep sometime after midnight, still dressed, too exhausted to change. She woke to pounding on her door and Marcus shouting her name. Up! Now! We're moving! Lena stumbled out of bed, heart hammering. What's happening? Victor knows about Park, and he knows we have him. Marcus was already grabbing a bag, throwing things inside. We're evacuating to the secondary location until Adrian sorts this out. How does Victor know? Someone talked. Someone always talks. He shoved the bag at her. 5 minutes. Grab essentials. Nothing else. Lena moved on autopilot, grabbing clothes, documents, the tablet with her training materials. Her hands were shaking again, muscle memory from that first night returning. They took the service elevator down, avoiding the main lobby. 2 cars waited in the garage. Elena was in the first with another security person Lena didn't recognize. Marcus pushed Lena toward the second car. Where's Adrian? She asked. Handling the situation. He'll meet us later. Marcus started the engine. We need to move before Victor figures out where we're staging. The drive took 40 minutes, heading out of the city into suburbs that gradually became rural. They pulled up to a house set back from the road, surrounded by trees, isolated, defensible. Inside, the safe house was sparse but functional. Elena immediately started checking windows, securing entry points. The other security person, introduced briefly as Thomas, set up monitoring equipment.
Stay away from windows, Marcus instructed. Don't go outside. Don't call anyone. We wait for Adrian's signal. How long? Lena asked. However long it takes. The hours crawled. Lena tried to distract herself with training materials, reviewing faces and connections, but her mind kept wandering to Adrian, to Catherine and David Park, to how quickly everything had escalated. Elena brought her coffee around noon. You're doing fine, she said, reading Lena's tension. Doesn't feel fine. It never does. But you're not panicking. You're not making things worse. That's better than most people manage their first crisis. Elena sat across from her. Marcus told me about Park. Said you read him correctly under pressure. That's harder than it sounds. I just watched him. You watched him and trusted what you saw instead of second-guessing yourself. That's a skill most people never develop. Elena paused. You're going to see worse than this. Situations where the right call isn't obvious, where people get hurt no matter what you choose. Today was practice for those moments. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. Adrian arrived just after sunset, looking tired but unharmed. Marcus met him at the door, and they talked in low voices for several minutes before Adrian came to where Lena was sitting. You okay? He asked. Fine. What happened? Victor found out about Park through a leak in Catherine's security team, someone we're dealing with now. He sent people to Park's apartment, found it empty, assumed we had him, made enough noise that we had to move everyone associated with the operation to safe locations. Adrian sat down heavily. Park's information was accurate. There is a federal witness, and Victor was planning to kill his family. We got word to the FBI. They're moving them into protective custody as we speak. So we stopped it, for now. But Victor knows we interfered. He'll retaliate. Adrian looked at her directly. This is what I meant when I said the work has consequences. We saved a family today because you correctly assessed Park's sincerity. But now Victor knows we have someone inside his organization feeding us information. He'll tighten security, purge anyone he suspects, maybe kill people just to send a message. The weight of that settled on Lena's shoulders. People will die because I was right? People will die because Victor's a monster who kills to maintain power. You're not responsible for his choices. Adrian's voice was firm. But you need to understand that good outcomes in this world often come with bad side effects. We can't save everyone. We just try to save who we can. Is that enough? It has to be. Because the alternative is doing nothing. They stayed at the safe house for 3 days. Lena spent the time training with Elena, reviewing intelligence with Marcus, learning to handle weapons she hoped she'd never have to use. By the time Adrian gave the all-clear to return to the penthouse, she felt different, harder somehow, more aware of how fragile everything was. The city looked the same when they drove back, but Lena saw it differently now, saw the layers beneath the surface, the conflicts playing out in rooms she'd never enter, the decisions being made that would ripple through lives in ways no one could predict. Adrian called a meeting the day after they returned. Catherine was there, along with Marcus, Elena, and 2 other people Lena recognized from the war room photographs. Adrian's inner circle. Victor's consolidating power, Adrian began without preamble. He's pulled his people back from 3 territories, shut down 2 operations, and executed 4 of his own lieutenants for suspected disloyalty. He's paranoid, which makes him unpredictable. Good, Catherine said. Paranoid leaders make mistakes. They also lash out. We need to be prepared for retaliation. Adrian pulled up a map on the screen. Victor's hosting a peace summit in 2 weeks, invited every major player in the region to discuss mutually beneficial arrangements. It's theater. He wants to look reasonable while positioning for a major move. Will you attend? Marcus asked. I have to. Refusing would signal weakness. Adrian turned to Lena. And you're coming with me. Her stomach dropped. Why? Because Victor will have his people throughout the venue, watching, listening, reporting back. I need someone doing the same thing for us, someone he won't see as a threat. Adrian met her eyes. This is what we've been training you for. You'll be in the room where it happens, invisible, gathering intelligence. Where's the summit? Catherine asked. Adrian's expression was grim. The Meridian, the same restaurant where this all started. Lena's blood went cold. He's doing it there on purpose. Absolutely. It's a power move. Showing he can walk into the place where his hit squad failed and act like he owns it. Adrian turned to Marcus. We'll need full security sweep before we arrive.
I want to know every exit, every sightline, every place they could hide a weapon. What if it's a trap? Elena asked. What if the whole summit is designed to get you in one place? Then we'll be ready for it, but I don't think that's his play. Too obvious, too risky with other families present. Victor's trying to rebuild his reputation after losing Park. He needs this summit to go smoothly more than he needs me dead. Adrian paused. Doesn't mean we let our guard down. The next 2 weeks were intensive preparation. Lena studied every person expected to attend the summit, learned their histories and allegiances, practiced moving through crowds while cataloging details. Elena created a new persona for her, upscale service staff, the kind of background character luxury events relied on. You'll be serving drinks, Elena explained, moving through conversations, refreshing glasses, completely unremarkable, but you'll be listening to everything, watching everyone, especially Victor's people. What am I looking for specifically? Anything that doesn't fit. Side conversations that seem too intense. People who arrive together but pretend not to know each other. Anyone paying too much attention to Adrian or the exits? Elena handed her a small device that looked like a compact. This has a camera and microphone. Use it to document anything suspicious. Just point and click like you're checking your makeup. And if something goes wrong, then you get out. Don't be a hero. Don't try to help. Your job is intelligence, not security. We have people for the other part. The day before the summit, Adrian pulled Lena aside for a private conversation. They went to his office, away from the others. Last chance to back out, he said. This is more dangerous than anything you've done so far. You'll be in a room with 50 people who've killed for less than looking at them wrong. If Victor suspects you're more than you appear, I can't protect you. I know. And you still want to do this? Lena thought about David Park, terrified and desperate. About the family Victor had planned to murder. About Rebecca, who'd died doing work similar to what Lena was about to attempt. I want to do this, she said. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You've changed since that first night. Harder. More focused. Is that bad? No, it's survival. But don't lose yourself completely in the process. The person who warned me because it was the right thing, keep her alive somewhere. We need that as much as we need the operative you're becoming. Why? Because the day you stop caring about doing the right thing is the day you become Victor, and this world has enough of him already. The night before the summit, Lena couldn't sleep. She stood at her window, looking out at the city, thinking about how far she'd come from the invisible waitress pouring water. Tomorrow she'd walk back into the Meridian, back to where it had all started. But this time she wouldn't be running from gunfire. She'd be walking straight into the heart of the storm, and she'd be watching, because that's what she did now. That's who she was. Part 4. Lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện và hối thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sàng. Có yếu tố con người, cấm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật, không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show up more 1501 part. Part 4. The Meridian looked exactly the same and completely different all at once. Lena stepped through the service entrance at 6 in the morning, dressed in the black uniform Elena had prepared, and felt the past collide with the present. Same kitchen smells, same layout, same marble floors. But everything underneath had changed. She wasn't the desperate waitress anymore, and this wasn't just a restaurant. It was a battlefield. You're early, said a voice behind her. Marco, her old supervisor. He looked older than she remembered, more tired. New catering company sent you? Yes, sir. Lena kept her voice neutral, slightly deferential. Marco had worked here for years but had never actually seen her. Not really. She was counting on that invisibility now. They said you needed extra staff for the private event. We always need extra staff. He handed her a tray. Water glasses to start. Refill throughout. Stay quiet. Stay out of the way. Standard protocol. Understood. Marco walked off without a second glance. Lena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. First test passed. The other servers arrived over the next hour, a mix of regulars and temps like her. She recognized two faces from Marcus's briefings, Adrian's people embedded in the staff. They didn't acknowledge each other beyond polite nods. Professional. Invisible. By 8 o'clock, the real work began. Security teams arrived to sweep the space. Victor's people and the neutral contractors hired to maintain the illusion of a legitimate peace summit. Lena watched them check sight lines, test exits, position themselves at strategic points throughout the dining room. Marcus's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece hidden in her hair. You're clear. They're not flagging service staff. Stay and roll. She touched her ear once to confirm receipt. No words, just the gesture. The guests started arriving at 10. Lena stood in the back with her tray, watching through the kitchen door as Power walked in wearing expensive suits. She recognized faces from weeks of study, crime bosses from 3 states, their top lieutenants, advisors who technically didn't exist on any official records. Then Victor Moretti entered, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. He moved differently than Adrian. Where Adrian was controlled precision, Victor was casual dominance. He smiled too much, touched people's shoulders when he talked to them, made jokes that everyone laughed at, whether they were funny or not. The performance of a man who wanted you to forget what he was capable of until the moment he reminded you. Lena's pulse kicked up. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. This was just observation, nothing more. Adrian arrived 15 minutes later with Catherine and 3 other security personnel. He didn't look at Lena as he passed through the dining room, but she felt his awareness of her presence anyway. They'd planned this carefully, no direct contact, no acknowledgement, nothing that would draw attention. The summit began with speeches, platitudes about cooperation and mutual prosperity that everyone knew were meaningless. Lena moved through the room, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, being furniture. And she watched. Victor's head of security, a man named Kozlov, positioned himself with clear sightlines to Adrian's table. Standard precaution, nothing unusual. But 3 of Victor's other people had spread out in a pattern that gave them overlapping coverage of all exits. More than standard. Lena made a mental note. Moved on. At Victor's table, she recognized Dmitry Volkov and Sarah Chen from the surveillance footage she'd studied. Sarah still looked nervous, though she hid it better in person. Dmitry was all confident charm, but his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging threats, calculating. More wine, Victor said without looking up. Lena stepped forward, refilled his glass. He didn't acknowledge her existence. Perfect. As she turned to leave, she caught part of his conversation with the man next to him. Needs to be handled delicately. The FBI is already watching too closely. The other man nodded. After the park situation is resolved, Victor interrupted, voice hardening. We've tightened protocols. It won't happen again. Lena moved away before they could notice her lingering, filed the exchange in her memory for later analysis. The afternoon dragged into evening. More speeches, more posturing, more careful conversations that never quite said what they meant. Lena's feet ached from standing, but she kept moving, kept watching. Around 4 o'clock, something shifted. Sarah Chen excused herself from Victor's table and walked toward the restrooms. Normal enough. But her path took her past a window where she paused, looking out at the street below. Just for a moment. Then she continued. 10 minutes later, Dmitry did the same thing. Different window, same pause. Lena's instinct screamed. That wasn't coincidence. She touched her ear twice, the signal for something suspicious. Marcus's voice came back immediately. What is it? Lena couldn't respond verbally without drawing attention. Instead, she moved to refill glasses near the window Sarah had looked through, scanned the street below. A van was parked across the street. Dark blue, commercial plates, nothing remarkable. Except it had been facing the other direction when Lena had arrived this morning. Someone had moved it. She moved to the second window Dmitri had checked. From this angle, she could see the van's side door was slightly open. Just a crack, but enough. Lena's blood went cold. She walked calmly back toward the kitchen, grabbed her tray, and positioned herself near Adrian's table. Refilled a water glass no one had drunk from while murmuring so quietly only the microphone could catch it. Blue van across the street, side door open. Sarah and Dmitri both checked sightlines to it in the last 15 minutes. Marcus's response was immediate. Fall back to the kitchen, now. But Lena couldn't move, because as she turned, she saw Victor stand up from his table, saw him make a small gesture to Kozlov, saw Kozlov touch his ear and speak into a radio, and then she saw it. The slight shift in posture from 3 of Victor's people positioned around the room, the way they all adjusted their positions at the same moment. Not protection, preparation. It's not about the van, Lena said quietly, still holding the water pitcher. It's a distraction. The real threat is inside. She looked at Adrian. He was listening to something Catherine was saying, completely unaware. 10 feet away, one of Victor's lieutenants, a man named Torres from the briefing photos, was reaching into his jacket. Time compressed. Lena saw it all at once, the setup, the execution, the trap within the trap. Victor wasn't trying to kill Adrian with snipers or ambushes. He was going to do it here, in front of everyone, and claim it was self-defense. That Adrian had made a move first, that Torres had reacted to a threat. She had maybe 3 seconds. Lena dropped the water pitcher. It shattered on the marble floor with a crash that silenced the room. Water and glass everywhere, spreading fast. Everyone turned to look at the clumsy server who'd ruined the expensive flooring. "I'm so sorry," Lena said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She dropped to her knees, reaching for the glass. "I'm so sorry. I'll clean this up." Adrian stood. "It's fine. Just get it cleaned up." Torres had frozen, his hand still in his jacket, but the moment broken. Too many people watching now. Too much attention on the wrong thing. If he pulled a weapon now, there'd be no plausible deniability. Lena gathered glass with shaking hands while 2 other servers rushed over with towels. She didn't look at Torres directly, but she felt his stare boring into her, felt him recalculating. Victor's voice cut through the murmurs. "Perhaps we should take a short break. Let the staff handle this mess." People started standing, moving. The tight choreography of violence disrupted by broken glass and spilled water. Lena kept her head down, kept cleaning, kept breathing. Marcus appeared beside her with a dustpan. "Get to the kitchen," he whispered. "Now." She stood, walked quickly through the swinging doors. Her hands were bleeding from glass cuts she hadn't felt, her whole body shaking with adrenaline. Catherine was there, pulling her toward the back exit. "What did you see?" Catherine demanded. Torres was going for a weapon. Same moment Victor gave a signal, 3 others shifted position to cover the exits. They were going to kill Adrian and call it self-defense. The words tumbled out fast. The van was a distraction. Make us think the threat was external, so we wouldn't see the one inside. Catherine swore, pulled out her phone. "Adrian, get out. It's a trap. Torres is armed." Through the kitchen door, Lena heard shouting. Movement. Then Adrian's voice, calm and clear. "Gentlemen, I think we're done here. This summit is over." Victor's response carried through the chaos. "Adrian, don't be dramatic. It was an accident." "Was it? Because my people have footage of Torres reaching for a weapon before the water spilled." "Seems like an odd coincidence." Adrian's voice hardened. "You wanted a peace summit, Victor. This is what peace looks like. Me walking out instead of putting a bullet in your head for trying to kill me in public." More shouting. Catherine pulled Lena toward the exit, but Lena resisted. "I need to see. You need to not be here when this escalates." Catherine shoved her through the door into an alley where Marcus was waiting with a car. "Get her to the safe house. I'm staying with Adrian." Marcus didn't argue. He pushed Lena into the back seat and the car was moving before her door closed. They drove in silence for 5 minutes before Lena found her voice. "Did I just start a war?" "You just prevented an assassination." Marcus glanced at her in the mirror. "Torres was planning to kill Adrian the moment Victor gave the signal. Your accident broke their timing, gave Adrian the chance to call it out publicly. Now Victor can't make a move without looking guilty. But he'll still make a move. Eventually, but not today. Not in front of 30 witnesses who all saw what almost happened." Marcus turned onto the highway. "You did good, Lena. Saw what we missed and acted on it." I dropped a pitcher of water. You created chaos at the exact right moment to disrupt an assassination. That's not luck. That's tactical thinking under pressure. Lena looked down at her hands. The cuts were still bleeding, staining her uniform. She felt numb, distant, like she was watching herself from outside her body. First time disrupting a hit? Marcus asked quietly. Yeah. It doesn't get easier, you just get better at handling the aftermath. They arrived at the safe house 20 minutes later. Elena was already there, pacing. She took one look at Lena and pointed to the bathroom. Get cleaned up. I'll handle those cuts. Lena let herself be directed, let Elena clean and bandage her hands while her mind tried to process what had happened. She'd walked into the Meridian as an observer. She'd left as the person who'd stopped Victor Moretti from executing Adrian in front of half the city's criminal leadership. That changed things. Changed everything. Elena finished with the bandages, stepped back. You're in shock. Normal response. Sit down before you fall down. Lena sat. Is Adrian okay? He's fine. Made it out with Catherine and the security team. Victor didn't try to stop them. Too many witnesses, too much exposure. Elena handed her water. Drink. You need to stay hydrated. I can't stop shaking. That's adrenaline crash. Give it an hour. Elena sat across from her. What you did today, dropping that pitcher, that was smart. Instinctive and smart. Most people would have frozen or tried to warn Adrian directly. You created a diversion that looked accidental, gave him plausible deniability, and broke Victor's plan. I didn't think about it. I just moved. That's what training is for. So when the moment comes, you don't have to think. You just act. Elena paused. But you should know, Victor's going to figure out what happened. He's going to realize that clumsy server wasn't clumsy, and he's going to start looking. Lena's stomach dropped. Looking for me. For whoever disrupted his plan. He might not connect it to you specifically right away, but he will eventually. These people always do. Elena's expression was serious. Your cover as invisible background staff is probably burned. We'll need to pivot your role. The door opened. Adrian walked in, still in his suit, looking tired but unhurt. His eyes found Lena immediately. You saved my life, he said without preamble. I dropped a pitcher. You saw what no one else saw and acted on it. That's twice now you've kept me breathing when I shouldn't be. He crossed the room, sat down heavily. Marcus briefed me. Said you ID'd the real threat while everyone else was focused on the van. Torres reached into his jacket. I saw Victor signal. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. It wasn't coincidence. We pulled security footage after. Adrian showed her his phone. The video showed Torres's hand moving toward a concealed weapon a split second before Lena dropped the pitcher. He had a gun, silenced pistol. He was going to put 2 rounds in my chest and claim I'd threatened Victor first. 3 other witnesses were positioned to back his story. Lena watched the footage replay, saw how close it had been. Why didn't you see it coming? Because I was focused on external threats. Didn't expect Victor to be bold enough to try it in public. Adrian turned off the phone. That was my mistake. Could have been my last mistake if you hadn't been paying attention. So what happens now? Now we respond. Victor tried to kill me at a peace summit. That's a declaration of war in front of witnesses. He can't walk that back. Adrian stood, started pacing. But we respond smart. Not with guns and bodies. With strategy. Catherine entered, followed by Marcus. They both looked wired, dangerous. Victor's already spinning the narrative, Catherine reported, saying you got paranoid and fled the summit over a broken pitcher, making you look weak and unstable. Let him. Everyone who was there knows what really happened. They saw Torres reach for his weapon. They saw Victor signal. Adrian turned to Marcus. I want complete surveillance on Victor's operations. Every move he makes, I want to know about it before he finishes making it. Already on it. I've got people watching his properties, tracking his communications. Marcus pulled out a tablet. He's consolidating again, pulling people back from secondary operations. He's getting ready for something. An all-out assault? Elena suggested. Possibly. Or he's protecting his core assets before we retaliate. Adrian looked at Lena. You're going to need to stay out of sight for a while. If Victor connects you to what happened, he will, Lena interrupted. Sarah Chen saw me.
She was nervous already, paranoid. She'll remember the server who was close enough to hear conversations, who was near Adrian when the picture broke. She might not connect it immediately, but she will. Adrian considered this. Then we use that. Use what? Your exposure. Sarah's already unstable, already questioning her loyalty to Victor. If she thinks you're one of our people who infiltrated the summit, that confirms Victor's security is compromised. It makes her doubt everyone around her. Paranoia spreads. You want to make me bait, Lena said slowly. I want to make you a ghost. Someone Sarah thinks she saw but can't prove existed. Someone who might be anywhere, watching anyone. Adrian's expression was calculating. Victor responds to threats with violence, but paranoia? That's harder to fight. It eats at organizations from inside. Catherine nodded slowly. We'd need to be careful. Can't expose Lena directly. But controlled leaks, rumors, strategic appearances in places Victor's people would notice. That could work. That could also get her killed, Marcus pointed out. Everything we do could get us killed. That's the job. Adrian turned to Lena. But this is your choice. You can stay invisible, work from the background, and we'll protect your identity. Or you can become a weapon we use to destabilize Victor's organization. Higher risk, higher impact. Lena thought about it. About Rebecca, who died because she'd been sent into danger. About David Park, who'd risked everything to stop Victor. About the family who would have died if no one had intervened. I didn't sign up for this to stay safe, she said finally. I signed up because staying silent while bad things happened wasn't acceptable to me anymore. If I can be useful, really useful, then that's what I should be. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You're sure? No, but I'm committed anyway. A slight smile crossed his face. Good enough. He turned to the others. Catherine, work with Lena on developing a shadow presence. Controlled appearances, strategic information drops. Make Victor's people see ghosts. Marcus, keep pressure on his operations. I want him reactive, not proactive. Elena, I'll adjust Lena's training for the new role. Elena finished. Less invisibility, more calculated visibility. Meeting in 12 hours to finalize the strategy, Adrian said. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start dismantling Victor's empire piece by piece. They dispersed. Lena went to her assigned room in the safe house, sat on the bed, and finally let herself process everything. She'd stopped an assassination, had saved Adrian's life for the second time, had permanently burned her cover and volunteered to become an active participant in a war between criminal organizations. This was insane. All of it. But it was also the most alive she'd ever felt. That night, Lena dreamed of the Meridian. But in the dream, she didn't drop the picture in time. Torres pulled his weapon, fired twice, and Adrian fell. And Lena stood there holding broken glass, unable to do anything but watch. She woke up gasping, covered in sweat. The cuts on her hands throbbed. Real pain, real consequence. This was what she'd chosen, not the adventure, not the excitement, the weight of knowing that people lived or died based on whether she was paying attention in the right moment. Could she carry that? Really carry it? Lena looked at her bandaged hands in the darkness, thought about the 3 seconds in the restaurant that had started everything. The choice to speak instead of stay silent. She'd made that choice knowing it would change her life. Now she had to live with how much. Morning came too fast. Elena knocked at 6, coffee in hand. Ready to become a ghost? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice, but you already made it yesterday when you broke that pitcher. Elena handed her the coffee. Now, we just make sure you survive the consequences. The training started immediately. Catherine taught her how to be seen without being caught, how to appear in places that would be reported back to Victor but leave before anyone could confirm details, how to dress in ways that would be remembered but described differently by different witnesses. The goal is to create the impression of omnipresence, Catherine explained. Victor's people need to think you could be anywhere, could have seen anything, that you're a threat they can't neutralize because they can't find you. And when they do find me, Lena asked, they won't, because you'll never be where they expect. Catherine pulled up surveillance footage. Look at this. 3 of Victor's people entering a restaurant downtown. What do you see? Lena studied the footage. They're watching the entrance, checking faces of everyone who comes in. Exactly. They're looking for threats from outside.
So you don't come from outside. You're already inside, already in position, already gone by the time they arrive. Catherine fast-forwarded the footage, showed a server walking past with a tray. The build was similar to Lena's, the posture trained. That's Maria, one of our people. She was in that restaurant for 3 hours before Victor's crew arrived. They never looked twice at her because service staff is invisible. But she documented every conversation, every contact, every tell. So I do what I've been doing. You do what you've been doing, but we weaponize it. Make sure Victor knows someone's watching without knowing who or when or how. Catherine smiled grimly. Psychological warfare. Cheaper than bullets and sometimes more effective. Over the next week, Lena became a ghost. She appeared in a coffee shop Victor's accountant frequented, sitting 3 tables away, face partially hidden by a laptop. She walked past a warehouse Victor owned, close enough to be caught on security cameras, but dressed differently than any previous appearance. She left a cocktail napkin from the Meridian on the windshield of Sarah Chen's car with a smiley face drawn on it. Small actions, calculated to create maximum paranoia with minimum exposure. And it worked. Marcus reported back after each appearance. Victor's security is flagging random service workers now, checking IDs, running backgrounds. Sarah Chen requested a transfer to a different city. She's completely spooked. Dimitri? Adrian asked. Holding steady but more cautious. He's tripled his personal security. Marcus pulled up new surveillance. But here's the interesting part. Victor called a meeting with his top people. We got audio. He played the recording. Victor's voice, angry and controlled. Someone is feeding Adrian information. Someone close. And I want to know who. Another voice, Kozlov, the head of security. We've swept for electronic surveillance, ran background checks on everyone with access. Then do it again. Someone walked into that summit, disrupted our plan, and walked out without anyone noticing. That doesn't happen by accident. It was a server who dropped a pitcher. It wasn't an accident. The sound of something slamming. Adrian knew. He called out Torres before anyone moved. Someone tipped him off. A pause. Then Victor, quieter, more dangerous. Find the leak. I don't care how many people you have to eliminate in the process. Find them. The recording ended. Adrian turned to Lena. You've got him chasing shadows, suspecting his own people. That's exactly what we need. But he'll figure it out eventually, Lena said. When no leak materializes, when the appearances keep happening without a pattern, by then, we'll have moved to the next phase. Adrian pulled up the map. Victor's distracted by internal security. That gives us an opening to hit his operations. Not with violence, with strategy. We offer better deals to his suppliers, create new partnerships with his distributors, undercut his pricing until his business model can't sustain itself. You're going to destroy him economically, Catherine realized. I'm going to make him irrelevant. Violence gets attention, draws law enforcement, creates chaos. But business? Business is clean, legal, and completely devastating if you do it right. Adrian looked at each of them. Victor built his empire on fear and control. We're going to build something better in its place, something that makes his way obsolete. Lena understood then what Adrian had been planning all along. Not a war fought with guns and bodies, a war fought with information, psychology, and strategic economic pressure. And she was the psychological component, the ghost that made Victor paranoid enough to weaken his own organization from within. What do you need from me? She asked. Keep being a ghost. Keep making appearances. And when the time comes, I'll need you to do something very visible very publicly. Adrian's expression was serious. When we're ready to move into the final phase, Victor will need to see that the person who's been haunting him is real, and that she's not afraid of him. That sounds like suicide. It'll be controlled, planned, and it'll break him. Adrian paused. But that's weeks away. For now, just keep doing what you're doing. You're already winning this war. You just don't realize it yet. Lena wasn't sure she believed that, but she trusted Adrian's strategic thinking, trusted the training she'd received, trusted that the person she'd become over the past months was capable of this. She'd been invisible for so long, trying to slip through life unnoticed. Now she was learning that sometimes the most powerful thing you could be was a shadow that people knew was there but could never quite catch. And Victor Moretti was learning to fear shadows. Part num. Luitam.
Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện và hồi thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liên mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch, sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình, viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cầm miêu tả qua mướt mà và hoàn hảo, phần 5 giải quyết hết vấn đề và kết thúc trọn vẹn câu chuyện. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chỉ dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật, không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more 15 Jobon Food Part nằm 6 weeks after the summit, Victor made his first major mistake. He executed 2 of his own lieutenants in front of their crews for suspected disloyalty. Public executions designed to send a message about the cost of betrayal. But the message it actually sent was that Victor had lost control, that paranoia was eating him alive, that no one in his organization was safe. Marcus showed Lena the intelligence reports in the war room. 3 more of his people have reached out asking for protection. 2 others just disappeared, probably running on their own. His empire's fracturing. How long until it collapses completely? Lena asked. Could be months, could be weeks. Depends on how hard we push.
That's so it.
Marcus pulled up financial records. Adrian's economic strategy is working. We've undercut Victor's pricing on shipments, offered better terms to his suppliers, bought out 2 of his distribution networks. He's losing money faster than he can replace it. And the FBI? Still investigating, but they're moving slow. Building a case takes time. Marcus glanced at her. You've been asking a lot of questions about the endgame lately? Because I want to know when this is over, when I can stop being a ghost. You miss being invisible? Lena thought about it. I miss feeling safe. This, being the thing Victor's afraid of, it's effective but exhausting. Every time I do an appearance, every time I leave evidence I was somewhere, I'm gambling he won't figure out the pattern and be waiting. But he hasn't. Yet. Lena turned from the screens. Adrian said there'd be a final phase, something visible in public. When does that happen? Soon. He's waiting for the right moment. Marcus closed the tablet. You ready for that? I don't know. Ask me when it's happening. The moment came 3 days later. Adrian called a meeting with everyone, Catherine, Marcus, Elena, and the 6 other key people who formed his inner circle. Lena had met them all by now, learned their specialties, earned a measure of their respect. But she still felt like the newest recruit, the one most likely to make a fatal mistake. Victor's hosting a charity event tomorrow night, Adrian began. High profile, public, legitimate. City officials will be there. Business leaders, press. He's trying to rebuild his reputation after the summit disaster. And you want to crash it, Catherine guessed. I want to make him an offer he can't refuse in front of witnesses who matter. Adrian pulled up the event details. The Meridian is hosting. Victor requested it specifically. He's trying to reclaim the narrative about what happened there. Lena's stomach tightened. You want to go back. I want us to go back. You and me. Very publicly. Very visibly. Adrian turned to her. You've been a ghost for 6 weeks. It's time to become real, to let Victor see that the person who's been undermining him isn't some phantom he can hunt down. It's someone standing right in front of him who he can't touch. Why can't he touch me? Because you'll be under the protection of legitimate business. I'm bringing you as my executive assistant. That makes you a public figure, not a hidden asset. Victor can't make you disappear without raising questions he can't answer. Adrian's expression was serious. But this only works if you're willing to step into the light completely. No more hiding, no more background invisibility. You become part of my public organization. And if Victor tries something anyway, then we have security, press coverage, and witnesses to document it. He's trying to look respectable tomorrow. He won't risk that image by attacking someone openly. Adrian paused. But I won't lie to you. There's still risk. Victor's desperate, and desperate people make unpredictable choices. Catherine added, We'll have people throughout the venue, armed, trained, ready to respond. But Adrian's right. The visibility is your protection. Victor can't afford another public disaster. Lena looked around the room. These people had become something like family over the past months. Not the warm, comfortable kind. More like soldiers in the same unit, bound by shared purpose and mutual reliance. They were asking her to step into the most dangerous position yet, but they were also promising to have her back. What exactly do you want me to do? She asked Adrian. Stand next to me when I make Victor an offer. Let him see you, recognize you, understand that everything that's happened since the summit has been coordinated.
Then watch his reaction. Tell me what you see. You want to use me as bait. I want to use you as proof that I'm smarter than him, better positioned than him, and capable of destroying him without firing a single shot. Adrian met her eyes. You've already won this war, Lena. Tomorrow, we just make it official. She didn't sleep that night. Elena came by around midnight with tea and sat with her in silence for 20 minutes before speaking. You don't have to do this, Elena said quietly. Adrian would understand if you backed out. Would he? Yes. He respects capability, but he respects honest fear more. Rebecca died because she said yes when she should have said no. Adrian still blames himself for not seeing that she was pushing past her limits. Elena set down her cup. So if you're not ready, say so. No one will think less of you. I am scared, Lena admitted, but I'm also tired of being scared. I want this to end. And if stepping into the light ends it, then that's what I do. That's not fear talking. That's exhaustion. There's a difference. Maybe. But the answer's the same either way. Elena studied her for a long moment. You've changed a lot since that first night. You know that? I know. Do you like who you've become? Lena considered the question honestly. I don't know yet. Ask me when this is over. The next evening, Lena dressed in the outfit Catherine had selected. Professional, elegant, expensive. She looked like an executive, someone who belonged in rooms where power was negotiated. The transformation was complete. The waitress was gone. In her place stood someone else entirely. Adrian met her in the penthouse living room. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her old apartment, but he looked tired. The months of strategic warfare had taken their toll on him too. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. Marcus drove them to the Meridian. Lena watched the city pass through the window, remembering the first time she'd made this drive, panicked, bleeding, running from gunfire. Now she was driving straight back into the heart of it all, voluntarily. You're quiet, Adrian observed, thinking about how different this is from the first time. Different how? Then I was running. Now I'm walking in on purpose. She turned to look at him. Does it ever stop being terrifying? No, you just get better at functioning while terrified. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Victor needs to see that fear isn't enough to win, that some people will stand up to him no matter the cost. Even if the cost is dying. Especially then, because that's when it matters most. They arrived at the Meridian. Press cameras were set up outside documenting arrivals. City officials, business leaders, socialites, all the people Victor wanted to convince he was legitimate. Adrian stepped out first. Cameras flashed. Then he turned, offered his hand to Lena. She took it and stepped into the lights. More flashes. Someone called out, Mr. Voss, who's your companion? Lena Cross, my new executive assistant, Adrian's voice carried. She'll be handling strategic operations moving forward. They walked inside together. Lena felt every eye in the room tracking their movement, felt the weight of visibility after months of hiding. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. Victor was holding court near the bar, exactly where he'd been during the summit. He saw them enter, saw Lena specifically, and his expression went absolutely still. Recognition. Calculation. Rage barely controlled. Adrian walked straight toward him. Lena followed, heart hammering but posture steady. Catherine and Marcus flanked them at a distance, close enough to respond, far enough to not seem threatening.
Victor, Adrian said pleasantly. Thank you for hosting. Lovely event. Victor's smile was pure ice. Adrian, I'm surprised you came. After the unfortunate incident at the summit, you mean when your man Torres tried to shoot me and my assistant accidentally disrupted the attempt? Adrian's voice was casual, conversational, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause. Yes, that was unfortunate. For you. The room had gone quiet. Press photographers were moving closer, sensing conflict. Victor's eyes flicked to Lena. Your assistant. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Lena Cross. She met his gaze directly. I've been working with Mr. Voss for several months now. Strategic observation mostly. Learning to see things others miss. The implication was clear. Victor's jaw tightened. Fascinating. And what brought you to Mr. Voss's organization? A chance encounter at this very restaurant, actually, right before someone tried to kill him the first time. Lena kept her voice steady. I've always been good at noticing when violence is about to happen. Useful skill in certain environments. Victor looked like he wanted to kill her on the spot. But there were cameras, witnesses, city officials watching. He was trapped by his own attempt at respectability. Adrian stepped forward slightly. I actually came here tonight to make you an offer, Victor. A chance to end this conflict peacefully. I'm listening. Retire. Step away from your operations. I'll buy out your legitimate businesses at fair market value, help transition your people to other opportunities. You walk away wealthy and alive. Everyone wins. The room was silent, every ear tuned to this conversation. Victor's laugh was sharp, bitter. You want me to surrender? I want you to recognize reality. Your organization is fracturing. 3 of your lieutenants have defected in the past month. Your financial operations are hemorrhaging money. The FBI is building a case that'll put you away for life. This isn't surrender. It's pragmatism. Adrian's voice was calm, matter of fact. You've lost, Victor. You just haven't accepted it yet. Because of her? Victor's eyes were on Lena. Because one waitress got lucky twice. Because you taught me something valuable, Adrian said. Violence is expensive and attracts attention, but information, strategy, psychological pressure, that's how you actually win wars. Lena understood that instinctively. She's been dismantling your empire one observation at a time while you were looking for assassins and traitors. Lena saw it happen. Saw Victor's control finally crack. Saw his hand move toward his jacket in a mirror of Torres's motion weeks ago. Don't! Catherine's voice cut through the tension. She'd moved closer, hand visible on her own weapon. Not here, not in front of everyone. Victor froze. Looked around, saw the cameras, the witnesses, the impossible situation he'd created for himself, saw that any move he made now would destroy the respectable image he'd been trying to build. His hand lowered. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Adrian's voice was firm. You just need time to accept it. The offer stands for 48 hours. After that, I stop being generous and start being thorough. He gestured toward the door. Enjoy your event, Victor. It'll probably be your last in this city. They walked away. Lena forced herself to move steadily, not rush, not show the fear coursing through her. Behind them, she heard Victor's voice raised in anger, heard security trying to calm him down, heard the murmur of shocked conversations. Outside, Marcus had the car running. They got in and drove 3 blocks before anyone spoke. That was insane, Lena said, voice shaking. He was going to shoot us. But he didn't. Adrian looked satisfied. Because he couldn't. Not without destroying everything he's built. That's the trap we set for him. Make him so focused on appearing legitimate that he can't use the violence he's built his empire on. And if he'd shot us anyway? Then Catherine would have responded, and Victor would be in custody before he made it out of the building. Adrian turned to her. I wouldn't have put you in that situation if I thought we'd die. Calculated risk based on knowing Victor's psychology. You knew he'd recognize me. I was counting on it. Needed him to see that the ghost haunting him was real, that she was standing right in front of him under my protection, that realization that he's been outmaneuvered by someone he never saw as a threat. That's what breaks men like Victor. Catherine's phone buzzed. She checked it, smiled grimly. Daniel Cross just arrived at the event with FBI backup. They're arresting Victor on RICO charges. Lena's eyes went wide.
You coordinated with the FBI? We've been feeding them information for weeks. Anonymous tips, documentation of Victor's operations, evidence they could use to build their case. Adrian leaned back. Tonight was the finale. Force Victor into a public confrontation where he'd expose his violent nature in front of witnesses. The FBI used that as justification for immediate arrest instead of waiting for the grand jury. So this was all theater. This was all strategy. Victor spent months chasing shadows and destroying his own organization through paranoia. We spent months building an airtight case and feeding it to people who could legally remove him from power. Adrian looked at her. You were the catalyst, Lena. The thing that made him paranoid enough to self-destruct. The weight of that settled over her. She'd helped destroy a criminal empire without firing a shot, without breaking laws, just by being observant and strategic and willing to step into danger when it mattered. Is it really over? She asked quietly. Victor's arrested. His organization will collapse without leadership. His assets will be seized or bought out. The territory he controlled will be redistributed. Adrian paused. It's over. They drove back to the penthouse in silence. Lena felt numb, exhausted, wrung out. Months of fear and tension finally releasing. Inside, the rest of Adrian's team was celebrating. Marcus had champagne, Elena was actually smiling, Catherine looked more relaxed than Lena had ever seen her. This was what victory looked like. Not explosions or dramatic confrontations, but quiet relief that the war was done. Adrian pulled Lena aside, away from the others. You held up well tonight. I know that was hard. It was terrifying. But you did it anyway. That's what courage actually looks like. He handed her an envelope. This is yours. Payment for your work, plus a bonus for tonight. Lena opened it. The check inside was for more money than she'd made in 3 years of waiting tables. This is too much. It's exactly what you earned. What you do next is up to you. Adrian's expression was serious. You can stay, work with us on legitimate operations, or you can take that money, disappear, start over somewhere safe. I'll support either choice. What do you want me to do? I want you to choose what's right for you. Not for me, not for the organization, for Lena Cross. She looked at the check, at the people celebrating in the other room, at the city visible through the windows, the same city that had looked so different 6 months ago. I don't know who Lena Cross is anymore, she admitted. The person who walked into the Meridian that first night. She's gone. And I'm not sure I like who replaced her. Why not? Because she's harder, colder. She can stand in a room with a man who wants to kill her and not show fear. She can dismantle someone's entire life through psychological warfare and feel satisfied instead of guilty. Lena turned to face him. Is that who I'm supposed to be now? You're whoever you choose to be. The skills you've learned don't make you a certain type of person. They're just tools. How you use them determines who you are. Adrian paused. You saved lives, Lena. David Park. That federal witness's family, maybe even mine twice over. You stopped someone who would have hurt a lot of people. Does that make you cold? Or does it make you someone willing to do hard things for the right reasons? I don't know. Then take time to figure it out. The offer to stay stands indefinitely. When you're ready to decide, let me know. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got news. Victor's trying to make bail. FBI's arguing he's a flight risk. He is, Adrian said. Make sure they have the documentation proving it. He turned back to Lena. I need to handle this. Stay. Celebrate if you want. Or go get some rest. You've earned it. He left with Marcus. Lena stood alone, holding a check that represented her value in this world, not sure if she wanted to cash it or burn it. Catherine found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the balcony watching the city. You okay? Just thinking. About? Whether I made the right choices. Whether this is who I want to be. Catherine sat beside her. I had the same crisis after my first major operation. Spent 3 months questioning everything, wondering if I'd become a monster. What did you decide? That monsters don't question whether they're monsters. They just act. The fact that you're asking means you still have a moral compass. You're just learning to navigate in territories where the directions aren't clear. Catherine looked at the city. This world needs people like you, Lena. People who can operate in the gray areas but still care about right and wrong. People who can be hard when necessary, but haven't lost their humanity.
I dropped a pitcher of water and it ended with a man arrested and his empire destroyed. That feels like too much power for one person. You didn't do it alone. You were part of a team executing a long-term strategy. Your contribution mattered, but it wasn't the only thing that mattered. Catherine stood. Don't carry more weight than is actually yours. That way lies either arrogance or paralysis. Just acknowledge what you did, accept that it had impact, and decide what you want to do next. She left Lena alone with her thoughts. The celebration continued inside, but Lena stayed on the balcony until the city lights started to blur. She thought about the waitress who'd saved a stranger's life on impulse, about the woman who'd chosen to step into danger instead of running, about who she might become if she kept walking this path. Morning came quietly. Lena woke in her room at the penthouse, disoriented by how normal everything felt. No immediate threat, no crisis demanding response, just silence. She found Adrian in his office, already working despite the early hour. He looked up when she entered. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. Slept too much. Feels wrong. Lena sat across from him. I've been thinking about your offer. And? I want to stay, but on different terms. I'm listening? I don't want to be the ghost anymore. I don't want to be the person who manipulates and undermines. I want to use what I've learned to build something instead of destroy something. She met his eyes. You said you run legitimate businesses too. I want to work on those. Help make them better, more ethical, more effective. Adrian considered this. The legitimate side pays less, has less drama, might be boring compared to what you've been doing. Good, I've had enough drama to last a lifetime. And if another situation comes up where we need someone with your specific skills, then you ask, and I decide if it's something I want to be part of. But I'm not a weapon you deploy whenever convenient. I'm a person with agency. Lena paused. That's the terms. Take it or leave it. A slow smile crossed Adrian's face. Accepted. Catherine actually runs most of the legitimate operations. I'll have her set you up in strategic planning. That should use your observational skills without requiring you to manipulate or deceive. What about Victor? What if he makes bail, comes after us? He won't make bail. The FBI has enough evidence to keep him locked up through trial. And even if he did get out, he has bigger problems than revenge. His organization is gone, his money's frozen, his reputation's destroyed. He's a man with no power trying to survive in a world that eats weak people. Adrian turned back to his work. You don't have to fear him anymore, Lena. That war is over. 2 months later, Lena sat in a conference room with Catherine and 3 executives from Adrian's shipping company, reviewing efficiency reports. It was boring work, technical, detail-oriented, exactly what she'd asked for, and she was good at it. The observation skills that had helped her survive criminal intrigue translated perfectly to corporate strategy. She could spot inefficiencies others missed, read the dynamics in business negotiations, identify opportunities for improvement that seemed obvious once she pointed them out. She'd also started taking classes again. Finishing her degree, but this time because she wanted to, not because she needed the credential to escape poverty. Adrian paid for it as part of her employment package. Said investing in his people made good business sense. Elena still trained her twice a week, now focusing on professional development instead of survival skills. Marcus checked in regularly, making sure she was adjusting okay to civilian life. Catherine had become something like a mentor, teaching her the legitimate side of strategy and operations. And Adrian remained a constant presence, running his empire with the same calculated precision he'd used to dismantle Victor's. But their relationship had shifted. Less employer-employee, more partners working toward the same goals. The Meridian reopened under new management 3 months after Victor's arrest. Lena walked past it one evening on her way home from class, paused outside, looking at the familiar entrance. A different hostess stood at the podium. Different servers moved through the dining room. The place looked the same, but felt different, like a movie set after filming Wrapped. Want to go in? Marcus's voice behind her. He'd been keeping an eye on her still, protective instinct not quite turned off. No, I don't need to. Lena turned away from the restaurant. That version of me is gone. I don't need to revisit where she died. She didn't die, she evolved. Maybe, but either way, she's not who I am anymore. They walked together in silence for a block before Marcus spoke again. You doing okay? Really okay. Not just functional okay.
Most days, yeah. Some days I still have nightmares about the summit, about Torres pulling his weapon, about dropping that pitcher a second too late. Lena paused. But I'm dealing with it. Seeing a therapist, actually. Someone Catherine recommended who works with people in high-stress occupations. That help? Some. She says I'm processing trauma in healthy ways, that I'm not burying it or pretending it didn't happen. So that's something. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Staying, but on your terms. Working with us without being consumed by it. Marcus stopped at a corner. Rebecca couldn't do that. She kept taking on more dangerous assignments, kept pushing herself harder until it killed her. You recognized your limits. That's smart. Or cowardly. No, cowardly would have been running away completely. You found a middle path. That takes more courage than either extreme. 6 months after Victor's arrest, Lena got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena Cross? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Who's asking? Sarah Chen. I don't know if you remember me. I remember. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. What do you want? To say thank you and apologize. Sarah's voice was quiet, strained. I testified against Victor, got immunity for cooperating with the FBI. I'm in witness protection now, new identity, new life. And I wouldn't be here if you hadn't scared me enough to jump ship when I did. Lena was silent, processing. I know you were the one, Sarah continued, the server at the summit, the person leaving those calling cards, showing up where Victor's people gathered. I know it was calculated to make us paranoid. And it worked. On me, at least. Why are you telling me this? Because you saved my life without knowing it. I was in deep, doing things I'm not proud of. But that fear you created, it gave me the push I needed to get out, to cooperate with people who could actually protect me. A pause. So thank you, even if it was unintentional. It wasn't completely unintentional, Lena admitted. We were trying to destabilize Victor's organization. You were a target of that strategy. I know, and I'm grateful you were better at psychological warfare than Victor was at violence. Sarah's voice shifted, became more distant. I have to go. New life doesn't leave room for old connections, but I wanted you to know what you did mattered, more than you probably realize. The line went dead. Lena sat with the phone in her hand, thinking about Sarah Chen, about David Park, about all the people whose lives had been touched by the decisions made in war rooms and strategy sessions. She'd saved people, but she'd also hurt people. The lieutenants Victor executed because of paranoia Lena had helped create. The families affected when Victor's organization collapsed. The workers who lost jobs when his businesses shut down. Good outcomes with bad side effects, just like Adrian had said. 1 year after that first night at the Meridian, Adrian called Lena to his office. She'd been promoted twice, was running strategic planning for 3 of his companies now, making good money, living in a decent apartment, building something like a normal life. I have a proposal, Adrian said when she arrived. I'm listening. Catherine's retiring, moving back to Montana to be closer to family. That leaves strategic security without leadership. He slid a file across the desk. I want you to take over. Lena opened it. Job description, salary, substantially more than she made now, responsibilities that would put her back in the world she'd tried to leave behind. I thought we agreed I was working legitimate operations, she said carefully. Strategic security is legitimate, protecting assets, personnel, information. Nothing illegal about it, but it does require the skills you developed during the Victor situation. Observation, threat assessment, strategic thinking. Adrian leaned back. You'd be good at it, better than anyone else I could hire, but it's your choice. What does Catherine think? She recommended you, said you have the instincts and the ethics. That combination is rare. Lena looked at the file, looked at Adrian, thought about the person she'd been, the person she'd become, the person she wanted to be. Can I think about it? Take your time. Position doesn't need to be filled immediately. She took the file home, read through it 3 times. The work would be interesting, challenging, meaningful. It would use skills she'd fought hard to develop. It would pay well enough to erase any financial worries. But it would also keep her in proximity to danger. Would mean making decisions that affected people's lives. would require her to maintain the hardness she'd developed while trying to hold on to the humanity underneath. Lena called Catherine that night. Adrian offered me your position. I know. That's why I'm calling you back. Catherine's voice was warm. What are you thinking? That I don't know if I can do it without losing myself again. Then set boundaries. Accept the job, but define your limits. Tell Adrian what you will and won't do. He'll respect that. Catherine paused. You're not the same person who started this journey, Lena. You're stronger, smarter, more capable, but you're also more aware of the costs. That awareness makes you better suited for this work than someone who thinks it's exciting or glamorous. What if I make mistakes? What if people get hurt? People will get hurt. That's inevitable in any work that touches conflict. The question is whether you hurt people through malice or through doing your best in impossible situations. Catherine's voice was gentle. You're not Victor. You're not even the person who manipulated his organization into collapse. You're someone trying to do good work in a complicated world. That's enough. Lena took the job. She set clear boundaries with Adrian. No assassinations, no criminal operations, no gray area work that violated her ethics. He agreed without argument, said those restrictions would actually make the security operations cleaner and more defensible. The work was hard. Managing teams, assessing threats, making judgment calls that had real consequences. But it was also satisfying in ways she hadn't expected. She was protecting people, preventing harm, using her abilities for purposes she could defend. 3 years after that first night, Lena stood in the Meridian one more time. Not as a server, not as an operative, but as a guest at a charity event Adrian was hosting. Real charity this time, supporting organizations that helped people escape poverty and violence. She wore an evening dress Catherine had helped her pick out, moved through the room with confidence that came from knowing exactly who she was and what she was capable of. Smiled at the same city officials who'd witnessed Victor's arrest, shook hands with business leaders who respected Adrian's empire. Marcus appeared beside her with champagne. You look comfortable. I am, finally. Lena took the glass. Weird, right? This place used to terrify me. Now it's just a room. That's called growth. Or trauma processing. Probably both. Adrian joined them, raising his own glass. To new beginnings. And survived endings, Marcus added. Lena thought about the waitress who'd warned a stranger about danger, about the woman who'd chosen to step into that danger instead of running, about who she'd become through the choices she'd made when it mattered. She wasn't that invisible girl anymore, trying to slip through life unnoticed. She wasn't the ghost who'd haunted Victor's organization. She was Lena Cross, Strategic Security Director, college graduate as of last month, survivor of a war most people would never know was fought. She'd started with nothing but the ability to see what others missed. She'd built that into something more. Not perfect, not without cost, but real and earned and hers. The Meridian hummed with conversation around her. Same restaurant, same city. But everything underneath had changed. And for the first time since that first gunshot had shattered her quiet life, Lena felt something close to peace. She'd made her choices, survived the consequences, become someone who could look back without regret and forward without fear. One whisper had changed everything, but it was all the choices after that made her who she was. And she could live with that.